right. Hello, everybody at Two Diabetes. This is Scott, and I am so excited to be hosting this week's live interview. I have the pleasure of welcoming Luca and Clement from EasyCarb, and rather than sit here and tell you all about them, I'm going to turn it right over to my guests and ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves and how EasyCarb, what is EasyCarb and how it came to be. So gentlemen, please jump on in and take over.
Hi guys, first of all, thanks Scott and Two Diabetes for inviting us. It's really a pleasure. So as you already introduced us, my name is Luca and he's my brother Clement.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, so we're brothers, even though we kind of maybe don't look like we're brothers on first sight. We actually come from Ljubljana. It's a very pretty small town and the capital of Slovenia, which is also a very small country. Yeah, so to very quickly to tell you guys a little bit more about us. By formal profession, we're biomedical researchers. Clement has a PhD in biomedicine, and I'm currently finishing my master thesis in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering, which is actually also a field pretty close to diabetes. But the whole story of our project kind of began a bit earlier than that, so a couple of years before. What actually EasyCarb is I'll get to the story again, but just so you know what I'm talking about, EasyCarb is first all-in-one complete carbohydrate tracker for people living with diabetes. It consists of a Bluetooth scale, so a portable scale, which is connected wirelessly with a smartphone app, which is basically the core of the product. And the idea behind it is to basically use the technology currently available to make the process of carbohydrate counting as optimized as possible, as easy as possible, as accurate as possible, to kind of get rid of all of this, I don't know, to make it as easy as possible, to make this process simple. So maybe I could return back to the story, how it all began. Even though apart from our academic endeavors, we were also sportsmen, semi-professional, let's say, but we spent quite a lot of time in sports. Clement trained ultimate frisbee. He was also a coach. I was very serious with track and field, with sprints. And naturally, of course, when you're dealing with sports, nutrition is very, very important. And we kind of combined this together with our academic research, and it kind of became a passion of ours. So we started messing around with different diets, messing around with different nutrition, try to see and kind of compare the effects it has on our body, on our results. So this is kind of where our interest for nutrition came from. And when you're dealing with nutrition, you pretty quickly come to carbohydrates, because they're kind of this major hidden cause for a lot of problems, for things that most people aren't really aware of, I'd say. So this is kind of okay. Then we started counting carbs on our own and tried different kinds of diets, let's say low carb diets, high carb diets, and so on, and tried to see what kind of an effect it has on us.
And if I may add, it was really important for us to log all this information, because we wanted to be scientific about it, right? So we wanted to see how the effects are. So we were logging not just food, but also sports and everything. And we realized how tough it is to do this every day, not throughout the day, but just once a day. What a commitment this is, and how important it was for us to do this and to have this log that we could compare and we could deduce something from these results. And that it was coincidentally, Luca was taking a course in diabetes.
Yeah, a couple of them actually. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like Clement said, so it's kind of a professional thing of ours. So as researchers, we have to have everything on paper to be able to analyze it. And yeah, at the time in parallel, like totally unconnected, I enrolled in a couple of courses through University of San Francisco and through University of Copenhagen on which were specialized on diabetes, because at the time I was also finishing up my bachelor's degree, which was in chronic immunological diseases. So it was also kind of a passion of mine. And yeah, I found I really found a lot of interest in that field. And I remember there was a particular week where we were focusing on diabetes management. And a large part of this basically focused on carb tracking and carbohydrate counting. And it was at that time that I was like, okay, that's something that I'm also doing and Clement is also doing, and I found it very interesting. But the thing that really shocked me was basically the significance of good carbohydrate tracking, and which consists of carbohydrate counting, of management, of logging, and everything. So this carbohydrate tracking, how important it is. And this was of course also a scientific course, and we were reading papers, reading cohort studies, like really huge studies from all over the world. And what was really shocking to me is that basically good carbohydrate control contributes the most to the long-term well-being of this condition. So simply by keeping good carbohydrate management, you are able to decrease the risk of developing basically all long-term diabetes complications by more than 50%. So this is basically one of the biggest factors in the game. So in kind of trying to prevent the development of diabetes. Yeah, and we also discussed kind of the significance and how people or people living with diabetes, their awareness about this issue. And it turned out that a lot of people really weren't aware. And basically then I told all of that to Clement, and we said, okay,
we anyway wanted to, we were anyway missing a scale and an app to do that. And we said, there are all these people out there that, their quality of lives depend on this. They're not just, they don't need to do this just out of interest. So, and there we had our reason and that's when we said, okay, we need to do this.
Yeah, this can like this. Yeah.
So I've done just a little bit of athletic training, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of focus on nutrition and carbohydrates just to fuel the body. And I'm curious about when the interest of that carbohydrates really peaked for you. Was it a combination of your academics and the athletic training and kind of this nice bridging together of multiple different interests? When did all that, I mean, it's really a beautiful story, isn't it?
Well, maybe I can say for myself, I think for Luca it came through these courses. For me it came from, I don't know if many of you know Ultimate Frisbee, and probably don't take it seriously as a sport, but the thing about Ultimate Frisbee is that usually you go to a tournament, and on tournaments you play, let's say, 7 2-hour games, and it's not it's physically, the tournaments are physically very demanding, and it's very different. You can have a very different experience of a tournament, even a very unprofessional one, if you are not paying attention to what you're eating. And it's kind of from, first of all, it struck me that, a lot of times you would see like, oh, for energy you need carbohydrates, right? You need like you need sweet juices, with juices with sugar, with maltodextrin, for example, that you get kind of this, that you replenish this carbohydrate. But I don't know, for some people it worked, for me it didn't work. So I was experimenting with different sources of energy, with protein, with fat. So I was eating nuts, and then I kind of found my rhythm, what I would eat in the morning, what I would eat during the games, and in the evening, so that I could have the most pleasant experience on a tournament. And it turned out that carbohydrates didn't have a lot to do with that. So then I started on my own kind of digging deeper into this. And at this time, Luca was living in Vienna. So we didn't talk much. But then once in a while, we would meet and we would discuss, just things that would interest us. And one of those evenings we were discussing this, and the ideas just kept piling on and the reasons why to do it. And I heard that and I heard this and so on. So that was kind of like we said, okay, we need to do this.
Exactly. So it was kind of a mutual passion of ours. Clemens was maybe originally derived more from sports. Mine as well, of course. It was very important to me, but I was very much fascinated about this carbohydrate metabolism. So from more of a maybe academic standpoint or a research standpoint. And of course, once I got involved into diabetes research, then this thing just reached another level. So it became a passion of ours. And then we saw that we really can make a change, that we kind of really studied these things in detail. And we had all it takes to basically make change. So
yeah, Luca was also then volunteering at the clinic for diabetes, people with diabetes, and
here in Ljubljana, it was just a private clinic, a very nice experience, and the physicians there were kind enough to allow me to participate a little bit, to see on my own and how it's done in practice. As luck would have it, it was the week when they were focusing on carbohydrate counting, and
really?
so this was like, again, just a weird coincidence. And I really then I saw that. So this is a workshop for people with type 1 diabetes, and they had no idea about the importance of it and the methods that they were using. I know that each country or at least continent has their own standards, but here in Europe it's really medieval, if I can say. So it's basically weighing everything on a scale, then having 3 different types of books with equations with you, and just calculating everything by hand. And apart from that, also what we found out during our project development is that really a lot of these food databases are totally inaccurate. And if you're, this is the basic, the primary thing. If you don't have a good source of information, then you're never going to do it right, even if you put all the effort into it. So
yeah, and if I want to know the information about not just carbohydrates, but the general nutritional value accurately, then bread is not enough for me. It could be white bread, dark bread, it could be breads made of different kinds of cereals, and they all contain different amounts of nutrients and carbohydrates. So you want to have your food as granulated as possible. But if you have that in a book, it means that you'll have a big book to carry around, plus it will be really difficult to find things. And this is just calling for having an app.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of questions coming in through the chat room. There's people who would love to see the device. I'm hoping you guys, I don't know if you have one there that you can show on the screen sometime during the interview. Another question is how portable is it? And then I'm very curious about what you just talked about, the verification or making sure that you have good quality food details. Maybe you guys can talk about some of those issues for a few minutes.
Yeah, so maybe I can talk about first about the stage of the product. So the way you can see the product is if you go to www.easycarb.org, and there is a video of it, and there are pictures and so on. But it's important to let you know. So we have the product now in the prototype phase. So the thing is, we did all the planning. So we constructed the plans for the scale. We have contacted all the suppliers that we would need for development. We have we basically have the contracts ready. We have a warehouse where they would do the assembly and so on. And this would all be done in European Union so that we can assure high quality of the product. We have the specifications for the app ready, and the design and the screenshots and everything. And we have, so from our knowledge, we have the most granulated and the most detailed food database in the world. So we pull the information from all the possible databases we could have found. It's ready to be merged with serial numbers and barcodes from all the products out there. So we've done a lot of work on this. But we basically found everything from our pockets or from our spare money that we would find. We did all of this work in free time. So we said, okay, this would be a great time to go to try to raise enough money to start a production with a crowdfunding campaign. So we launched a campaign on Indiegogo, but unfortunately, so we were aiming to get $90,000. So this would help us get the initial batch of material that we would need for the scale, money that we need to certify ourselves according to the FDA, our regulations, so that because if the app is the insulin calculator, it needs to be under classification of a medical device. So, and all of this costs money that we simply didn't have. And we wanted to do this properly. So we went for an Indiegogo campaign. Unfortunately, we weren't able to raise not even enough funds to get the project lifted. So we said, okay, we need to redesign and rethink the product. The thing is also, we wanted to give the app completely free of charge. So the full version of the app with an open API, so that anybody that is using any other technology can connect. We think this is, some apps, there are many other apps out there, they would charge for, so they might be free, but they would charge for a report. And we thought, we need to get this product to as many people as possible. And this is why we also designed the scale so that it's relatively cheap to build. But for this, you need more investment upfront.
Exactly.
So we were a little bit disappointed that the Indiegogo campaign didn't go well, but we are not giving up. We're pushing things forward. So unfortunately, we don't have the prototype here, but you can see it on the webpage how it looks like. And at this stage, we're in the process of basically securing enough funds to make it happen.
Great, thank you. And that you guys touched on a really interesting point that I don't think many of the viewers realized, is that you are intending to build in a bolus calculator of sorts, right? Taking the food information and calculating a dose of insulin from that. Talk a little bit about what that's all about and the requirements behind that.
Exactly, that's a good point. So as I mentioned, actually the core of our product is going to be the app. So we want to make or design our app in a way that it will merge all the different aspects of good carbohydrate control in a single place. So you have apps that have certain food databases. You have some apps that act as bolus calculators. You have some loggers and so on. But we want to merge everything. So really deliver everything at a single place. And we have the knowledge about all human metabolism, about how insulin works. So the idea behind it is to also make the app capable of learning. So we all know each person is an individual. Each person reacts differently to the amount of carbohydrates they eat at different times of the day in different parts of the world. And we want to make the app capable of learning this patterns and to kind of apply it in the future. So to really make kind of a next generation calculator for everything. So an app, basically the scale is an extension, is one or basically the first in the line of extensions of our app, which would just make the determination of the mass or the amount of carbohydrate that you eat a bit more convenient and accurate. And also, yeah, as a way, yeah.
So also the bolus calculator automatically logs the state, so you know when you eat, what kind of food, how much carbohydrates was that, and then when the system is learning, it tells you. So it will tell you that usually you eat your lunch at 2 o'clock, let's say. So when there is when you'll reach 3 o'clock and you'll have no entry, you'll get a notification saying, usually at this time you're eating. Just log in the data. It takes a few minutes. So it will. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, on one hand, to make the app designed in a way that it represents the minimal stress to the user, so the minimal amount of interaction that it needs with the user. And on the other hand, we last year, towards the end of the last year, we visited Stanford School of Medicine, where there was
it was a Diabetes Mind event, so the data exchange, where we had the pleasure to be able to present our product.
And we met such wonderful people there. Everybody doing this, everybody trying to find out solutions. Mm-hmm. They are all dedicated with their hearts to what they're doing. It was such a wonderful event, and we met we met people there that are measuring real time glucose levels in real time. We met people that are trying to do artificial pancreas. And what was very interesting about that day, what really stuck in my mind, was this interoperability.
Yeah.
So there is so many types of data that different people. So people gather, either that they're gathering from Fitbit or all these wearables now that measure everything, and then they're from devices that, like Nightwatch is Nightwatch is something else. Yeah. So Nightscout is doing a great job with pulling all this data in one platform. And this was a very revealing moment when we said, okay, we need to integrate all this information into our app. So whoever is using EasyCarb can also benefit from the information from other sources, and vice versa. So if you're using Nightscout, you should be able to pull the data from EasyCarb. So it was a pleasure of meeting all the people there, and we had really good conversations, great ideas, and if we can make it, we'll be able to be compatible with all of them. So this is kind of more long-term vision for EasyCarb, which I think is very important. And I think this closing up everything is not the right way, because we are on the same ship. We need to have this available.
Exactly.
You've got a lot of happy people in the crowd hearing that. We are fans of open communication. So we've also got a lot of great questions out there. So I'm just going to fire a couple of them off, and we'll go from there. So one question I thought was very interesting was, what do you guys know about how food changes as it's cooked? Does the nutrient value change as a food is cooked?
Of course, especially with carbohydrates, when we're dealing with, maybe not with sugar in that aspect, but like a lot of the things that we eat, for example, bread and pasta or whatever, it contains complex carbohydrates. That's what they're called. And among them, probably the most known one is starch. So what happens to this food is also, when you cook it, when you thermically, so when you apply heat, this starches begin to degrade. Okay, so this long chains of carbohydrates quickly become shorter chains, and this has an impact on the so-called glycemic index. And glycemic index just basically tells you how fast the carbohydrates you eat are going to be transformed to glucose in your blood. So the shorter the chains are, basically the higher the glycemic index a certain food will have. And so you might have information for, I don't know, for let's say for rice before it's cooked, but the reality is that you eat it once you cook it. So that's a different story then. And a lot of people are not aware of that, unfortunately, and a lot of food databases don't take that into account. So that was a very good question. And it's also, again, if you cook it for 10 minutes, if you cook it for 20 minutes, there are differences. And it's hard to log all of this, and it's hard to learn how to calculate it appropriately. So this is also one of the things that we'd love to integrate in our app.
Maybe what's important to add, and this is my personal feeling, it's I think diabetes is too much associated with just carbohydrates. Of course, they play an important role, but there are also, I think you should look at the person, at the metabolism of a person as one whole, where, of course, carbohydrates play a very important role, particularly for a person with diabetes, but you need to be aware of other nutrients as well, because if you don't get enough of different nutrients, of vitamins, of ions, of proteins, of fat,
fiber,
your body's not going to function the way it's supposed to. So what we want also to implement with time is that you will track not only carbohydrates, but also all nutritional values. And then at the end of the month, the app will be able to tell you, look, you're not eating enough magnesium and you're not eating enough fiber, for example. These are the foods from this database that you should be eating more. So, and then there's a ton of things that you can connect to recipes. You can connect to all kinds of things that would help the people. So we have a big dream for EasyCarb.
Yeah. Just one important point that I'd like to add is since not everyone is experts in the field of nutrition, of course, and we are very well aware of that. We decided to also include a PDF report function. So with time, as you would be logging this, the app would automatically generate a PDF report, a scientific PDF report, specially designed for a physician to view. So we would also like to involve physicians, and we actually did a lot of talks and meetings with very kind of renowned endocrinologists from Europe, and they all really supported the idea. And they say that usually they don't have enough of an insight into their patients. So this is also interesting for the medical field. So yeah, this is kind of the long-term goal, to, like Lennon said.
Sounds like there's some really great education opportunities, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Let's try and get through a couple more questions. We've got more questions than time, which is wonderful. It's a sign of a very interested audience. So thank you guys for all of the great questions. One of the struggles that many of us have, myself included, is dealing with realistic serving sizes. So I look at a food label and it says this many nutrients for this much food, and then I deal out this much food. What are your thoughts on that? I imagine the EasyCarb scale helps me cope with that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I can answer. So absolutely. So that's exactly why the scale was designed. So it's that's one of the most important factors, that you know how much food you're eating. So in mass, and it's people would think, okay, I measure an apple, once, and then I know apple has, let's say, 100 grams, right? But you get big apples and you get small apples, and they can vary up to 50% in mass. So, and if you inject insulin based on a 50% inaccuracy, that's something you don't want to do. So it's actually very important, and it's very difficult to estimate weight accurately enough by eye. So this is kind of what led us to the scale. So and that being one of the first things that we would like to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Is it possible for your product, or perhaps your service through education, to help us better deal with complicated combined foods, such as what we might see in a meal that's prepared already. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course. So one thing that we also want to kind of implement is to be able to estimate with basically good accuracy about the content of carbohydrate also in complex meals, because some meals have very standardized ratios between carbohydrates and other nutrients. For example, I don't know, lasagna or as an example. So for some structured meals and complex meals, it is possible to determine it through machine learning and through just simple calculation. But of course, for everything, it's not possible yet. So one thing that we were also thinking about is to maybe integrate it with food vendors, so with restaurants and other. So there are a lot of restaurants popping up who really specifically make meals for people living with diabetes, for example. At least it's like that in Europe now. It's getting pretty trendy, and this would also be an interesting kind of aspect.
Yeah, and there are many restaurant chains out there that have a very standardized meals that they're doing.
Yeah.
So ideally, when I said barcode integration, ideally barcode scanning with your phone would be an alternative to weighing the actual food. But when you come with, if somebody makes you, a plate full of potatoes, a steak, and vegetables, that's really difficult to determine the carbohydrate value unless you weighted all the food beforehand. So it doesn't solve all the problems, but these are things that are anyway difficult to solve. So we were trying to focus on what are the things that are easy to solve and that could be solved with a scale. So you mentioned portability. So we designed the scale to be of a size that fits in any pocket. So the scale is durable. It's it's dust proof. It's waterproof. So you can put things on. You can clean the scale. You don't need to charge it, so it has a low energy Bluetooth. So it's good for
around half a year to 1 year with a normal battery. Yeah.
So and then you simply change the battery. So it's we try to make it like as straightforward as possible. It has basically no moving parts, no display,
no buttons.
So it just connects to the phone.
That's great, and I really appreciate you guys picking apart some of these hard problems. I think that most of us living with diabetes know that many of the problems we live with are quite complicated, and we appreciate any effort that folks are putting forth to help make bits and pieces of it easier. So for those of us out there that enjoyed listening to what you guys are all about, how can people learn more about what you're doing and support what you're working on?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with us, so at this stage we are, we encourage everyone that has their own ideas, that want to be part of this project, that wants to help, or just wants more information, to either visit the webpage, subscribe to the newsletter. Please write us at info@easycarb.org. So we will be very happy to get in touch with all of you. We can arrange a phone call, a Skype meeting. So we just want at this point to talk to as many people as possible that are engaged and that want to contribute. So if you know somebody that would be willing to help with this project, to maybe write some code. If you know somebody who is looking to invest some money, basically anyone who, based on what we said today, would be willing to help. We are always happy to connect with everyone. I hope you see that we are very outgoing, and that basically we want to bring our passion to life.
Exactly. Another thing, maybe if you're more of a social media freak, of course, you can also visit us at EasyCarb on Facebook, or EasyCarb Project on Twitter. we'll be happy if you give us a shout out or just give any feedback, and we always reply very quickly.
That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on the 2 Diabetes Live interview, and we hope to see you around.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for
Thanks a lot.
inviting us and to let us share our story.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.